I want to stay with the war in Ukraine. Kyiv and Moscow are both suffering heavy losses as fighting intensifies in the east of the country. The commander of the Ukrainian forces says that the situation in Bakhmut remains difficult, but that his soldiers are managing to repel Russian attacks. The fight for control over the city has reduced the city to basically ruins. Over the weekend, Ukraine's President Zelensky said more than 1,100 Russian soldiers have been killed in the area. But the head of Russia's paramilitary Wagner group maintains that his group is still advancing, even though the situation was, as he put it, tough, very tough. All right, let's go now to our very own Nick Connolly. He's in Kyiv. Nick, Russian forces continue to make slow progress in Bakhmut. They've reportedly taken control of the eastern side of the city. Is Ukraine in a position to stop them or launch, even think about launching a counteroffensive?
Well, I think there is a counteroffensive in the offing, at least that's what everyone's talking about here in Kyiv. I think Ukraine is desperate to show its Western backers that it can push the Russians back further. Those last big victories were last autumn in Kherson and Kharkiv, and basically there's a sense here that the West is going to force Ukraine to the negotiating table on some kind of Russian terms if they don't prove that they can win. But I don't think that counteroffensive is going to be anywhere near Bakhmut. Right now, the Ukrainian forces are really tightly surrounded by Russians there. There's just a very small bottleneck connecting the city with Ukrainian-held territory. So the question, I think, now is whether the Ukrainians first have to leave Bakhmut, as it seems most NATO and US top brass would want them to do, or if they can keep going in Bakhmut, try and draw Russian attention, Russian resources to their positions there in Bakhmut while launching a counteroffensive somewhere else, and kind of do both at the same time. I think that's the question right now, and there does seem to be a difference of opinion there between Kiev and certainly the US.
Nick, Russia has agreed to extend the Ukraine grain export deal following talks with the UN earlier today, but only for another 60 days. Has there been any reaction from the Ukrainian government?
We've heard from the responsible Minister of Infrastructure, saying that is basically not the deal that was agreed when this whole thing was set up to prevent and kind of delays to grain exports, to keep food coming out of Ukraine and to keep food prices affordable around the world, especially in Africa and parts of South Asia. There's definitely a sense that this deal is, from a Russian perspective, working too well. Ukraine's farmers are getting money, are able to sell their crops across the world, and that Russia is trying to make this more difficult. We've seen really long waits for inspections of these ships as they try to cross the Bosphorus to get into the Mediterranean. The Ukrainians would say that the Russians are specifically making an effort to kind of delay exports and basically up the price of shipping for Ukrainian farmers, and that there is just a sense that Russia is looking for any way it can to try and put pressure on the Ukrainian economy, which after all is still miraculously functioning over a year into this war. Their attacks on the energy system aren't working, so trying to put pressure on shipping, and specifically that crucial agribusiness sector that also has so many connections to consumers across the world, that is the sense here that Russia's going to try and find any kind of technicality or any kind of way to make that more difficult.
DW's Nick Connolly with the latest tonight from Kyiv. Nick, as always, thank you.